Hi, this is the overview of week 2 in Ezekiel in the year 3 Sunday school curriculum for the youth. My suggestion for this week was to look at some of the events in the life and ministry of this weird major prophet. As you look over his life, you'll undoubtedly find things that catch your attention. I'll mention some things that stand out to me. First, Ezekiel was not able to speak or move unless God allowed him to. So look at Ezekiel 4, 24 and 27. Ezekiel was bound so that he couldn't go outside of his house by his own will. Was he paralyzed? Was there something blocking him? The idea is that he couldn't move. And then, of course, he couldn't speak. This means that in the 11 years Ezekiel ministered, he was unable to speak or move until God moved him. The people would have known this, and eventually they would have seen that he wasn't faking it. When you see some of the stuff Ezekiel did, I'll bet it became the talk of the city when he was on the move. This also made it hard to persecute Ezekiel. It's hard to threaten or question somebody who can't talk or move. Second, Ezekiel acted out some very strange things. For over a year, it appears that he acted out the siege of the city. Now, this had to have been in a public place or it would have been meaningless. I get the impression this might have taken place somewhere busy, like a market. Here you have this guy who can't move come up and set up in the morning and lying aside all day, well, except for when he took time out to grill his lunch over cow pies. That lasted for over a year. And I'll bet it was fun to take your kids to the market and see crazy Ezekiel. Not. In Ezekiel 5, Ezekiel is commanded to go into a public place and to give himself a shave and a haircut with a sword. Then he gets to throw some hair up in the air and try to strike it with the sword. If I'm a parent, I'm wanting to know where my kids are. In chapter 8, Ezekiel is in his house and the elders are sitting before him. And suddenly, God takes him on a field trip. The field trip totally explains why God has to judge Jerusalem so harshly. In this vision, the glory of the Lord leaves Jerusalem. At the end of the vision, Ezekiel tells the people and the elders present what took place. In chapter 12, he gets to act out getting ready to flee the city like a hobo or a refugee. And then in chapter 14, you have this very interesting portion where God says that the people in Jerusalem were so corrupt that even if the 3 most righteous men who ever lived on earth were there by their own righteousness, they could only ever save themselves. The stunning part of this is that Daniel, who is still alive, is mentioned. What an honor for Daniel. Actually, Daniel, of those 3 men, is the only Israelite. A big thing in chapter 28, verses 12 through 17, in God's condemnation of Tyre, is that the prince of Tyre is mentioned, the human guy, and then the king of Tyre. This king is clearly Satan, and he seems to be called the covering angel or the guardian angel. This is one of 2 places in the Bible where it talks about Satan's creation and fall. The other is in Isaiah 14, 12 through 15. Ezekiel 24:15. Another very sad thing that marks Ezekiel in the unusual nature of his life is that the Lord takes Ezekiel's wife in death and doesn't allow Ezekiel to mourn her loss. Now, I can imagine that the Lord already knew she was going to die, and he used that timing to coincide with this lesson for the people. But still, the reality is that Ezekiel had a very tough life. Isaiah paid a price to be used as he was used. Jeremiah was alive and suffering in Jerusalem and still had more to come. And then you have this prophet, the 3rd major prophet. Life on this planet is pretty tragic. It's worth serving the Lord as Ezekiel served him, and even as our Savior served him. Maranatha.